Hello, everybody. Okay, so we'll start out as usual with the same recitations, have a little bit of silence for some meditation, and then cultivate our motivation, and then we'll get into the talk. Okay? So remember the visualization. Let's generate our motivation. So the vision of this life is very strong. We rely on our senses and are mostly engaged with external objects. And we tend to think in some way that that's the most important thing happening in the universe because it concerns us. And we remain very unaware of others' experience, or even if we are aware of what's going on in this world, even if we think about beings born in the other realms of existence, we just kind of, well, they're not so important because what's happening to me is most important. And in that way, although we love the bodhicitta and we want to become bodhisattvas and we have a good motivation, we actually forget it. So now is the time to remember what is going on in the world, even what's going on in our own country. If you don't know it, we're facing another government shutdown because they haven't passed a bill to keep the government up and running. So, to really consider everything else and other living beings' experiences and broaden our mind and care about their experiences. Some of their experiences we cannot directly influence. Some of their experiences we can make a difference. But when we're stuck in our self-centered ways, we become incapable of that. So let's really come back to our core motivation, and really think about the kindness of others and how even our opportunity to listen to teachings tonight is due to the kindness of others. And so in that way, regenerate our bodhicitta, aspiring for full awakening, so that we don't have these limits to our love, and limits to our compassion. But so that these very virtuous mental states will become a very natural part of us, of who we are. Okay, so take a moment, generate your motivation. So I'm glad to see about half the community is ambulatory and able to come together and listening to teachings. The reason we're doing it over Zoom today is I have rebound COVID, and I'm afraid I'm contagious, so I don't want to spread that to anybody at this point. So there's some things we need to talk about as a community. And as you know, I like to discuss things when they happen. Yeah, when there's a teaching moment, to really use what's happening to explain, how we can practice Dharma in that moment, how we can bring the Dharma to the moment that we're experiencing. Okay, so this morning I got up, started my practice. This was before I received 27 emails before lunch. Okay, and had to 27 emails. So one of the first emails, when I finally did check, was from Venerable Bhiksuni, and she was saying that many people in the community wanted to cancel completely the retreat on good grief with Venerable Thubten. And she forwarded to me Venerable Thubten's reply when she heard that idea. And she was saying that she is perfectly willing to teach, and she could do the teaching sessions. We don't need to have meditation. It won't be an in-house retreat because anyway, we can't clean the Abbey up from all of our COVID stuff instantaneously. So she was perfectly willing to speak. And yet she said many people didn't want to have the retreat even online. So that, to me, is a teaching moment. Yeah. Why? Because having the retreat online involves very little energy from the community, except to turn on your Zoom connections, and one person sitting behind the computer. That's it. And so I thought, okay, so I want to tell you a few stories because little things can matter. Rilbu Rinpoche, who was a very wonderful teacher. I never studied with him, but I visited him. And I heard a story about him. He was very close to dying, and I think he was in a coma. And at one moment, he came out of his coma, and his attendant was in the room. And Rinpoche said, "There are so many Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Make offerings to them. Hurry, make offerings." And I thought, wow, that was his first thought coming out of a coma. There's Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. We've got to make offerings. We've got to create merit. And then I thought, people in the Abbey didn't want to have an online retreat because it's just too much trouble now. It's still a week away, but it's too much trouble, and we're tired, and we're still recovering from COVID. So I am not talking about pushing yourself. I want to be very clear here. We all need to rest as much as we need to get over COVID. I'm not talking about pushing. Okay. Because I tried pushing. Yeah. Earlier when I was a nun, I remember one time Lama Zopa was in Singapore where I was stationed, And, I had been like, again, swamped with many, many things to do. And I just thought, oh, here's Rinpoche, and he has so much compassion. He hardly sleeps at all. He's up all night doing his practices, sending out answers to all the people who write him about their problems. If I only had more compassion, I would be like Rinpoche. What's wrong with me? Oh, I'm such a bad practitioner. I am so selfish. Beat up, lash. You know the trip, okay? So that doesn't work at all. So I'm not talking about doing that. But what I am talking about is when we make decisions individually or as a community that are only based on what we feel right now, which is it's too much energy to have a retreat. We're not even talking now about having it an in-person retreat. We're talking about an online retreat. Okay, now think about it. Geshe-la, yesterday, he gave teachings in the morning. Was Geshe-la feeling well yesterday? No, he was sick. He's been sick for a while. Did he give teachings? Yes. Venerable Thubten, yeah. Is she completely well from COVID? I don't know. Maybe not. Is she willing to teach? Yes, she wants to. Yeah. People said, well, let's just cancel the retreat and reschedule it for summer. And she said, no, there's people who need to hear about how to deal with their grief now. Why make them wait, 8-9 months to hear about that? Okay, now look at Geshe-la's mind. Look at Venerable Sangye Kadro's mind. Who are they thinking most about? The audience, the people who can benefit from hearing the teachings. They weren't thinking about how they feel. They were thinking about the possibility of benefiting others. And that was what was most important to them. And I remember Lama Zopa saying many times, when there's a chance, just to give people a little bit of a Dharma perspective or invite them to a teaching, not pushing Dharma on people. I'm not talking about that, but just inviting them. He said to do it because you never know how many eons it's been since that person has had any contact with the Dharma, and how many eons in the future it will be until they have contact with the Dharma again. So here is one moment where we can help sentient beings. Whoever takes, Geshe-la, who listened yesterday, Venerable Sangye Kadro, she gives the retreat. How many people can benefit? And this may be the only time in thousands of eons that they have the karma and the external conditions to hear the Dharma teachings. But we don't want to give them that opportunity because it's not convenient for us. Right. So I don't feel good about that. I don't know about you, but I don't feel good about that. One of the reasons, is because I've come to really see that small things matter. Yeah. And how did I meet the Dharma? I met the Dharma totally by accident. Yeah. there was somebody who organized a teaching for Lama Yeshe, Lama Zoka in Los Angeles. That person put a flyer at Bodhi Tree Bookstore on Melrose Avenue in Los Angeles. And I happened to go to the bookstore that Sunday morning and see that flyer and said, oh, I was in Nepal before. I heard something about meditation. I didn't know anything about it. I want to go to these talks that they're giving. And I went to the talks, and that made me decide to go to a retreat that they were giving. And that made me decide to go to Kopan. And it basically changed the course of my entire life. Now, that person who put the flyer in Bodhi Tree Bookstore could have thought, oh, I've been driving around, putting flyers in different places. It's a long way to get to Melrose Avenue and the bookstore. It's not so important. It's just one place. I won't put the flyer there. I'm tired. I want to go home. They could have easily thought that. If they had thought that, the entire course of my life would be different. And the entire course of your life would have been different, because you wouldn't be here listening to teachings now. So that one small thing somebody did out of an act of kindness influenced so many people's lives. So the point that I'm getting at is we should not think solely about how we feel. Okay? If you're really sick, okay, you got to stay in bed. But if it's just something where it's inconvenient and you don't feel like it, think of the possible benefit to others. Yeah? And think that some people may not have met the Dharma for eons and may not ever meet it for eons in the future, unless this happens to be the time when there's connection and they can hear the teachings. Yeah. So think about that when you make decisions. Okay, the second thing I want to talk about is when you change the schedule of something, or before you change the schedule, just don't go ahead and say, well, I'm in charge of the schedule, so I'm going to cancel this retreat, or I'm going to cancel this teaching, or whatever it is. You have to confer with the teacher. Yeah, you don't make your own decision. You have to go to whoever is scheduled to give that talk or lead that retreat. And if you want to change the schedule about something, you need to confer with them. Yeah. Why? Because they're the primary person that is leading the retreat. And if you're not considerate of that person's feelings and what's convenient for them, then what about everybody else? So you may remember some years ago, I can't remember all the details, but I was scheduled to give some kind of talk, but then everybody canceled it and decided not to have it, or they wanted me to do it at a different time. Nobody told me I was going to give the talk. And then I found out, there's no talk. We decided it wasn't convenient. We canceled it. Let's do it at 2 hours from now, or whatever it was. By that time, I had no energy or interest in giving the talk. because I thought, is there anybody who really sincerely wants to hear it? Because the reason for postponing it to me didn't sound like a very good reason. And so I just had no interest in giving the talk, so I didn't. Yeah. So one time when I was giving talks in different parts of the country, I was invited to give a talk at some kind of center where they, it was a new age kind of thing, where they had people putting on their, the electric caps with all the electrodes and everything. And they were beeping certain waves and, so on and so on, which was going to bring you to a higher level of consciousness. So I went to that place. They had invited me. I went to give a talk. There were many people in the center, but no people at the place where I was to give the talk. They were all hooked up to these machines with all the beeps, and different electrodes doing their thing to bring them into a higher level of consciousness. And nobody wanted to hear the Dharma. So, of course, I turned around and left. Yeah, these are the only 2 times that I can remember where I was slated to give a talk where I didn't. Okay. So it really makes me understand, why it's so important, not just to have a teacher, but it's important to have an audience that is sincerely interested in listening to the teachings. Because if that isn't there, then there's no reason. Yeah. So please remember this, okay, in the future. Then the next thing is one of the people from our prison project wrote me an email today. And we, Al, who's one of our best Dharma practitioners, many of you have read his letters and so on. And actually, there's something that's going in this. Did you print it out by any chance? I don't think so. Anyway, I wanted to read a segment from a letter that somebody wrote to Venerable Jigme, really saying that having the Dharma was just a life-saving thing for him, because otherwise he's in his cell feeling, depressed. So the result of the meeting I'm sorry, I have more information to give. There's the possibility for us to join with a service that can put a lot of Dharma teachings online. And this service makes these teachings, whatever you put online, available to inmates. Not in every prison in the country, but in many prisons. Al is in one of the prisons where it's been, where it's there, but we aren't enrolled in it, okay? And Al, is saying, please, see if you can enroll the Abbey in this, and then you can get a lot of more teachings out to a lot of people in different prisons. Okay, so Al suggested this a few months ago. So I turned it over to the prison project people to deal with. Their conclusion from their meeting today, as I understand it, okay, was that they were all going to go away and separately think about how they could make this happen and put our material on this service. and that they would meet again in April and discuss it again. Yeah. Did I understand the conclusion correct, Venerable Gyatso? Yeah. And Venerable Lama, yeah. Okay. Now imagine you are sitting with a life sentence in a prison, in a cell, where you're allowed out a few times a week for 1 hour for exercise. You can go to Chow Hall every day. And that's about it, unless you're sick. You can go bathe every so often. Yeah. But otherwise, you're in your cell, or you are in a dormitory with 300 other people, some of whom are talking, some are screaming, some are sleeping. Everything's going on in a dorm, in a prison. And you had the opportunity to contact the Dharma. And then you heard that people who have the opportunity to join a program like this that would make the Dharma available just decided to put it off for 6 months because it wasn't convenient. Or it's too difficult. It costs $3,000. I assure you, we will have funding for that. My royalties are more than $3,000 a year. And I'm sure that people who do the retreat from afar, yeah, as they always do, is they contribute for the money for the stamps to send Dharma teachings out to other inmates, usually over 200 inmates, about 250 usually, so that they can read the teachings that are given to all the retreat from afar attendants. Okay, so funding is not going to be a problem. Our silent retreat doesn't start until near the end of November. It seems to me that somehow we should be able to come up with a plan. If we care about other people. If our attention is more on ourselves and what is convenient for us, then doesn't matter. They have life sentences. They can wait another 6 months. They're not going anywhere. Okay. You should read some of the letters we get from inmates and how much they appreciate when we send them books, when we send the printouts of material. So we got to figure out how to get our mind from thinking about what's convenient for us and what we feel like doing and other people's situation. Okay. So like I said before, pushing ourselves, oh, if only I had more compassion, oh, I'm such a bad person, bad practitioner. That's not going to work. Okay. What will work? I'll tell you what I do. Okay. As I sit down and I think about the kindness of others. Yeah. And in this situation, the first people I think about, the kindness of, are the people who are cooking lunch for us and bringing us lunch every day. Some of our supporters in CDA, in Spokane, wherever, yeah, they care enough for us, not only to cook the food, but to drive an hour or an hour and a half up here, leave it, and drive back. And because of that, we've had lunch through our days of COVID. Not to mention, yeah, that Venerable Damche and not yet Venerable Tenzin, have really shouldered what's going on with the whole community, except the two of them being sick. And because of that, we have the privilege of lying in bed and recuperating, except for perhaps Venerable Ho-Ho here, Venerable Thubten, who is constantly getting emails from me about what they're doing at the east entrance of the Buddha Hall and what they're not doing there, and why in world is this going on. And she's also looking at the altar and what they've built so far in conjunction with Venerable Nawang. And, a so flurry of emails going back and forth. And then, Young Construction sends us a diagram of how the east entrance is going to look. And it's totally, it is not at all what we decided it would look like. And so, writing emails to the construction, all of this. So except for her, maybe, and of course, Venerable Jigme and Venerable Munlam, who are going around making sure everybody's still alive, most of us have the privilege of just kind of resting and relaxing and trying to recuperate. When I think about your experience and the kindness I receive from everybody who's keeping the Abbey running while I'm sick, and the kindness of the people, many of whom were the same people who housed us during the evacuation, again stepping forward, cooking for us, offering us food. It's amazing, And when I think of the kindness of even my first grade teacher, who really helped teach me how to read, and my mother, who taught me the alphabet, and all the teachings I had through school, teachers I had through school, some I liked, some I wasn't so fond of, who helped me, learn. And my parents, who had to discipline me because I was so obnoxious. And the kindness of these people, when I really think about it, then there's no pushing involved to do something that will benefit others. Automatically comes the feeling of, I want to do something. I am part of an interwoven network of sentient life, and what other people do influences me, and I've received so much benefit from what they do. I live in the middle of the construction site. I look out the window every morning. I'm doing my practices, and they're out there, in the wind and the rain and the heat and everything else, building the Buddha Hall. And I think, oh my goodness, thank you so much for doing that, because there's no way I could build the Buddha Hall. When we built Chenrezig Hall, Venerable Tarpa and I both did a photo clip of lifting up a Foswall block and putting the glue around and putting on the Foswall block. Okay. So we had two blocks we contributed. And when we poured concrete for the footing of Chenrezig Hall, we also did a little photo thing of her and I holding, the concrete hose where the concrete comes out, boom, and we're pouring the footing, which they let us do for maybe about 20 seconds. And then they took the hose away from us, because who knows where the concrete would have wound up. Okay. But I think of how I benefit from so much from what other people do. And automatically the thought comes up, I want to do something in return. It's only fair. Yeah. We always talk about fairness when we feel we're the disadvantaged one. It's not fair. You know, my brother gets to do something that you wouldn't let me do at that age. It's not fair. The friend across the street, their parents got them such and such a toy, but I don't have that. You know, we always talk about fairness when we feel that we're deprived. But think about fairness in terms of everything we've received from the kindness of others. You know, and where would we be if all the people working on the Buddha Hall just decided to walk away? Yeah. Where would we be if the people bringing us lunch every day said, you know, it's really inconvenient. I have many other things to do today. Yeah. Where would we be if Geshe-la didn't teach, if Venerable Sangye Kadro didn't teach? Yeah. So we have to think about this and how we create karma when we make decisions either to support having teachings or not. You know, it will influence whether we're able to receive teachings in the future. Okay. So then I also heard another story, and this may be a little bit touchy, but the topics I just talked about were probably a bit touchy too. As I heard that one of the monks was complaining that we don't have gender equality here when he was asked to help unload something heavy from one of the trucks. Yeah, because he was being asked to do that. And there were other people, including Venerable Thubten, our 98-pound weakling. She hates when I say that, but it's true. When she was there together with a couple of other people, and they were going to lift this, the Dharma wheel. And the complaint was, why am I, as a man, being asked to do this when we're supposed to practice gender equality? Well, it's really too bad that Venerable Jigme wasn't out there too. I think Venerable Jigme and Venerable Thubten, just the two of them, I think, could have lifted that thing. You know, Venerable Kunsho helped lift it. He told me that he was exhausted after that and had to rest. But I think those two tiny nuns, you know, especially, Venerable Jigme, who has trouble walking, we should really practice gender equality and send them out there to do that heavy work. What do you think? Okay. So I think, let me check that my list is done. Maybe you'll be off the hook for a little bit. Okay, yeah. Okay, 2, that's all. But think about what I said, okay? Because our motivations, our actions make a difference. And not only to what other people experience, but to what we will experience. Now, before we start where we left off last time, Venerable Damtra, I hope you are listening, because there's some corrections to make that I noticed. Okay, so those of you who have the book, page 299, sorry. Second paragraph down. In short, it starts out, in short, any neutral or virtuous mind that is not free from defilement and can transform into a Buddha's wisdom dharmakaya as part of the transforming Buddha nature. We should really qualify that. Any neutral or virtuous mind, in the continuum of a person who is not free from defilement. Okay, so it should say, any neutral or virtuous mind that is not free from defilement, in the continuum of someone who is not free from defilement and can transform into a Buddha's wisdom kind. Okay, we need to specify that because otherwise the sentence doesn't make a lot of sense. Okay, then the fourth para down, here is it? Okay, the first sentence in that paragraph starts out, because the afflictions are empty of inherent existence, awakening is possible. It's not only because afflictions are empty of inherent existence and that awakening is possible, because then why haven't we been attained awakening yet? It should read, because the afflictions are empty of inherent existence and antidotes to them exist, awakening is possible. Yeah. So if the antidotes to them didn't exist, awakening would be impossible, but they exist. So guess what? We can eliminate the afflictions. Now that's good news. Okay. And I just want to make sure, did people have, when you all assiduously reviewed your notes from the last teaching, did you have any questions about it? Because we went into the Madhyamaka view and the Buddha nature according to Tantra. Okay. What's important in talking about Tantra and is that we're talking about the extreme, we're talking about the subtlest mind, which is one entity, one nature with the subtlest wind. Okay. So why, if somebody has practiced the Sutrayana and realized emptiness, generated bodhicitta, practiced up to the 10th bhumi bodhisattva, why do they still need to practice Tantra to get from the 10th bhumi, where they're almost Buddhas, over that last bump? Okay, that question comes up. Why? Okay, when I was in Long Beach listening to Kyabje Songren Rinpoche's teachings, so a similar question came up. And Rinpoche pointed out that it's to attain full awakening involves removing all the latencies of all afflictions. So it's important that every mental consciousness in someone's mind has realized emptiness directly, because it's only through realizing emptiness directly, not conceptually, directly, that particular consciousness has the power to overcome a certain level of afflictions. So up to the 10th bhumi, following the Sutrayana, you can eliminate a whole lot of afflictions. You can eliminate all the afflictions, actually. And on the 8th, 9th, and 10th bhumi, you can even start eliminating some of the latencies of the afflictions, which are cognitive obscurations. But if that subtlest mind itself has not realized emptiness directly, it is still obscured and is not awakened. So it's only through the tantric practice that one can make manifest that subtlest mind and then employ it to realize emptiness. That subtlest mind becomes manifest at the moment when we die and right before we go into the bardo. But in ordinary beings, that mind is obscured. It goes quickly. We don't use it to realize emptiness. Okay. But if we're able to actually make manifest that mind, either at the time of death, like Lama Tsongkhapa did, or during life, where other practitioners did, then it's possible to attain awakening. So that's a very necessary part of the journey to complete the whole path. Does that mean that right now we should start doing all the practices to manipulate the channels and winds and drops and to make that mind manifest? Well, I wouldn't recommend it I don't know about your level, but I know my level. To really be able to be successful making that mind manifest, you have to have genuine bodhicitta spontaneously. You also have to have realized emptiness directly. Then you also need to be very skilled with moving the drops in the body and controlling the winds in the body. So what our job is to have respect for Vajrayana, aspire to be able to do that practice. But let's focus on creating the causes. Yeah. If we always jump and don't think about creating the causes for something, it's like somebody who wants to be a millionaire, but they don't want to get a job. Yeah. So we got to start where we're at. Okay. But for me, I remember when I first heard the what's called the Salam, the path and stages of Vajrayana, and hearing about what this extremely subtle mind can do. This is how I really thought, oh, now I understand how awakening can happen. Yeah. Before that, I didn't really understand how fully, So, I just have some kind of rough general idea, but it's better, but there's some confidence now that I didn't have before I had heard that teaching. Okay. So I'm not able to practice like that now, but I certainly have the aspiration and try and create the causes to be able to. Okay. Let's go back to page 302, the 9 similes for Tathāgatagarbha. Okay. Which, hold on a second. So these 9 similes are according to the Sutrayana, and they're discussed in the Tathāgatagarbha Sutra as well as in Maitreya's text, the Sublime Continuum, and a Sanga's commentary on that. And we're talking about Tathāgatagarbha here. This is volume 4. It's going to come, I'm giving you a sneak preview. It's going to come up again in volume 9. Yeah. And there's some really interesting things talking about what Tathāgatagarbha is from the viewpoint of different Buddhist schools. Just giving you, hanging the carrot out there. Okay, so let's start reading. By using 9 similes, the Tathāgatagarbha Sutra gives us an inkling of the Buddha nature that has always been and will continue to be within us. Maitreya's Sublime Continuum and its commentary by Asanga explain these similes that point to a hidden richness inside of us, a potential that we are usually unaware of. And that's one of the big things that come out here of how we have this amazing potential. And we're usually just spaced out. We're not even aware of it. Contemplating the meaning of these similes generates great inspiration and confidence to practice the path. All afflictive and cognitive obscurations are condensed into 9 obscurations spoken of in the 9 similes. By applying the appropriate antidotes, all of these can be removed and full awakening attained. Okay? So we should really think about these similes and see our own potential and be invigorated to use our own potential. From beginningless time, the basic nature of the mind has been immaculate and has never been mixed with stains or afflictions. So this is talking about the emptiness of the mind and just the regular clear light nature of the mind, being clear and cognitive. But it has been covered by these 9 obscurations. As we progress on the path, the transforming Buddha nature develops, the mind becomes pure, and the obscurations are gradually eliminated. So you remember last time that we talked about the 2 kinds of Buddha nature, the natural Buddha nature, which is the emptiness of the mind, and the transforming Buddha nature that we can build upon, and that can become the Buddha's wisdom dharmakaya. Yeah, the emptiness of the mind becomes the Buddha's nature dharmakaya. Okay. When all obscurations have been removed such that they can never return, the purified mind becomes the wisdom dharmakaya, and its emptiness becomes the nature dharmakaya. So Maitreya says, here's a quote from the Sublime Continuum. This Tathāgatagarbha abides within the shroud of the afflictions, as should be understood through the following 9 examples. So here there are the 9. Just like a Buddha in a decaying lotus, honey amidst bees. A grain in the husk, gold in filth, a treasure underground, a shoot, and so on, sprouting from a little fruit, a statue of the victorious one in a tattered rag, a ruler of humankind in a destitute woman's womb, and precious image under clay. This Buddha element, or Buddha nature, abides within all sentient beings, obscured by the defilement of the adventitious poisons. Okay. So the fact that the poisons of our afflictions are adventitious is something really important. That means they can be eliminated. They aren't the nature of the mind. Okay, so here's the first simile. So it's nice when you think about these similes to really visualize the simile, and really think about, what is it? What would it be like? What would it look like? Okay. So the first simile, the Buddha essence is like a beautiful Buddha image in an old, ugly lotus. okay? Or any flower you want to make it, okay? So all of our flowers in the garden are, with the change of seasons, they're all dying. So you have a beautiful Buddha image wrapped in one of these dead flowers. When the petals close around the Buddha image, we see only the old lotus and not the beautiful Buddha image. Not knowing the image is there, we never think to open the petals and take it out. So there's maybe a satsa of the Buddha enclosed in the image. Yeah. But we can't see it because it's enclosed in the lotus, a dying flower, but we can't see that beautiful satsa. Okay. So similarly, the seeds of attachment obscure our Buddha nature. While all beings who are not arhats are obscured by the seeds of attachment, this simile applies particularly to ordinary sentient beings in the form and formless realms. Although they have temporarily suppressed the coarse manifest afflictions of the desire realm by entering into deep states of meditative absorption, the seeds of afflictions still remain in their minds. Ordinary beings in the form and formless realm are specified in this example because Aryas may also take rebirth in these realms. However, they have already eliminated some portion of the seeds of afflictions. So that's why it's specifying ordinary beings born in the upper realms. So we look, the ordinary beings in the upper realms specified. That doesn't mean that we ordinary beings in the desire realm, we don't have any problem with afflictions, that we see our Buddha nature? No, not exactly. Next paragraph says, we beings in the desire realm too have the seed of attachment. Yeah. When it explodes and becomes full blown, we have no awareness of our Buddha essence, which is the source of all hope and confidence. Instead, we become totally engrossed in the objects of our attachment. It's true, isn't it? Yeah. Whatever we happen to be attached to at that moment, it doesn't have to even be something fancy. Yeah. It can be something very ordinary, but at that moment, I really want it. Yeah. Just as the beautiful and fragrant lotus withers and becomes decrepit after a few days, the people and things we cling to with attachment age and decay. Do we think about that? Because the appearance of this life is so strong, that we think things will continue to exist just as they are, just as we're seeing them. I remember one time there was a young woman, the child of the niece of somebody who was offering service at the Abbey. This was years ago. And we were driving to Coeur d'Alene. I was giving a talk. And we stopped somewhere to have a picnic at a park. So she was like 14 years old and boy crazy. Okay? So very normal, natural for a 14-year-old, 15 or 16-year-old girl. Okay. So she's sitting there. We're having a picnic, and she's staring at this group of teenage boys who are playing. I don't know what they were playing, but she is just, wow, look at those guys. And I said to her, What do you think they're going to look like when they're 80 years old? Are they going to look like they look now? She was crestfallen, totally crestfallen. Yeah. It's such a good example of how we think whatever we're attached to is going to always look that way. Yeah. But these, nice, handsome young guys, forget 80 when they're 60, when they're 40, when they're 30, they're not going to look like they look now. Yeah. Okay. But we don't think of that, So while initially these things bring us happiness, later we become bored and cast them aside as we would a withered flower. Yeah. So even we get what we're craving, it's not going to make us happy forever. Yeah, it would be interesting to follow up on her with her. And when she becomes, 80, to check how she thinks of the guys then, Okay. A person with clairvoyance can see the Buddha image inside the lotus and will open the flower and remove the Buddha image. Similarly, the Buddha sees the Buddha essence in each sentient being, even those in the health, and thinks, who will liberate these beings from their obscurations, especially their attachment? Yeah. We may look at these beings overwhelmed by attachment and say, I want to get the same thing they want. Or as Dharma practitioners may say, oh, they're so hooked on their attachment, they don't have any awareness at all. We're superior to them. Okay. But what does a Buddhist see when they see people afflicted by attachment like that? Who will liberate these beings from their obscurations, especially their attachment? So we're not saying that we should automatically think that. We're not Buddhas. But what would it be like to train our mind so that whenever we saw somebody overwhelmed by attachment, we thought, who will liberate them? Yeah. How long are they going to be in samsara going round and around? Because the Buddha has great compassion and is free from all defilements, he will guide us to discover the beautiful Buddha image, the wisdom Dharmakaya, hidden by our attachment. So who's going to help us do that? The Buddha and the high-level bodhisattvas. Okay. Sometimes I sit and think about the high-level bodhisattvas. What are they doing now? They're in some pure land or another pure land. They're, manifesting all these emanations going out all over the universe. Yeah, they're doing all this work, but they aren't here in front of me. Yeah, I want a high-level bodhisattva, better yet, a Buddha, to appear in front of me and say, I am a Buddha and I will lead you to awakening. Listen to me. Yeah, that would be kind of nice, wouldn't it? Let me tell you, a lot of charlatanandas are very willing to appear before you and say that. But the problem is they're charlatananda. You know charlatananda? Yeah. But it would be nice. But, the Buddhas don't announce themselves, nor do the high bodhisattvas. So who might be there desperately trying to help us overcome our attachment? And we say, they say, well, meditate on impermanence. And we say, oh yeah, that's nice, but right now I'm busy. I'll come back to that later. I'm eating my delicious lunch. Okay. Just, have you ever thought of how many Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are really trying to help you every single moment of the day, and how little we pay attention to the help they give? Yeah. So they don't have to appear before us and make an announcement, da, 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 like His Holiness coming on stage. You don't see him walking up, and there's the drum roll, and His Holiness gets on the throne and says, I'm a Buddha, I'm going to lead you to awakening. Listen to what I say. No. His Holiness looks and appears like an ordinary 88-year-old man who is still walking from his residence all the way up through the courtyard and up into the temple. And he just sits down like any person and has the tea and bread that are offered. Yeah. And yet, what is he telling us? Even he only speaks for at most an hour and a half nowadays because of his age. What are the two things he always tells us? Okay. Number one, develop a kind heart. Yeah. Develop bodhicitta. Do what you can to put those imprints in your mind and develop a kind heart now while you have the chance. Second thing, think about the nature of reality. Okay, it's difficult. Realizing emptiness, even understanding the text is difficult. But put some effort into that. Because if you put effort into it and plant a lot of seeds in your mind, one day you will be able to really understand the text and meditate on them and realize emptiness. Those are two things. Every single teaching he tells us. And he gives us the practice that is often found in tantric initiations. Yeah. It's what's it called? The yoga of, I can't remember the name. Anyway, one of you remember the name? Venerable?
All-encompassing yoga?
All-encompassing yoga. Thank you. Called the all-encompassing yoga. Remember where he tells us to visualize a white radiant moon disk, flat moon disk at our heart, and think that embodies bodhicitta, and to think about love and compassion for all sentient beings when you visualize that. And then on top of that, you visualize a white upright dorji, vajra, and that represents the wisdom realizing emptiness. So you think about emptiness. When he leads us in that meditation, it's like 1 minute on developing a kind heart and bodhicitta, 1 minute of thinking about emptiness. Yeah. And yet, I don't know about you, but it took me a while to oh yeah, I need to really do this every day. Yeah. It's just 1 minute here and 1 minute there. And I think I can fit that in. Okay. So just, yeah, it's a way to help us really tap into our Buddha nature. Let's do the second one. The Buddha essence is like honey with a swarm of bees surrounding it. So, swarm of bees, we are very familiar with that. There's a big, right outside Chenrezig Hall, there's a big wasp's nest. Yeah, last year the wasps were content to be inside the wall. This year, they expanded. They're building their own Buddha hall outside the wall. Okay. And a few people got stung. Yeah. So we built like a fence around that. So the wasps have to fly up. They can't fly directly at you. I don't know how well that's worked. I hope it worked well. Okay. But this image of how do you feel when you're around a swarm of bees? So you're the honey and a swarm of bees is around you. Yeah. Some of you may have had the experience of accidentally stepping on or bumping into a wasp nest or a bee nest. And the whole sangha of wasps or bees comes out and chases you as you run away. Yeah. So this is like, this is like us with anger, what anger does to us. Okay. The honey is like the ultimate truth, the emptiness of inherent existence. Just as all honey has the same taste, the ultimate nature of all phenomena is the same. Bees not only conceal the honey, but also angrily sting someone who tries to take it, harming themselves as well as their enemy. Just like when we get angry and speak harshly to somebody or harm somebody physically, we not only harm the other person, we harm ourselves by creating that kind of karma. Oh, here's another story I can tell you. I wasn't here at the time of this teaching, but Alex told me about it. And His Holiness was teaching, I think it was in South India, I'm not sure. But it might have been actually in North India. But because, it must have been in the South. Because when you go to South India, where the monasteries are, there are these huge, like this big thing of hornets' nests hanging from the edge of the monastery roof. Not just one or two, but several hornets' nests. And sometimes, hornets are worse than wasps and bees. But sometimes the hornets will fly all around when His Holiness was teaching. So at one time, it seemed like they were flying inside the hall, even where he was teaching, and outside in the courtyard where he was teaching. And His Holiness stopped, and he did some recitations. And then all the hornets left the building and left the site. Yeah. So this is the kind of power when you have samadhi and bodhicitta together. This is the kind of thing, that he can do. Similarly, we cannot see our honey-like Buddha essence because it is obscured by the seeds of hatred, anger, resentment, and vengeance. Ugh. Are you happy when you're in that kind of state of mind? Imagine being Trump all day, and this is what your mind is preoccupied. How miserable that poor person is. This obscuration pertains specifically to ordinary beings, again, in the form and formless realms, who do not experience manifest anger, but still have the seeds of anger in their mental continuums. So again, by emphasizing in these first two similes, the beings in the form and formless realms, it's saying that not only are these beings who have suppressed the manifest afflictions, they haven't finished their job and they can't, tap into fully, their Buddha nature is still obscured from them. What about us? We're obscured by all our desire realm fantasies. Because apparently, when, the bliss is so strong when you're in the form or formless realm absorptions, that you get attached to it. And so many non-Buddhists, at least, who aren't well schooled in emptiness and bodhicitta, think that this is liberation. They've attained liberation because it's so blissful and not interrupted. And yet they haven't attained liberation. So when that karma runs out, kerplunk, down to the lower realms. We beings in the desire realm have the seeds of anger as well as coarse manifest anger. These seeds not only prevent us from seeing our beautiful Buddha essence, but also enable the destructive emotions related to anger and animosity to manifest in our minds, mercilessly stinging ourselves and those around us. So when we get angry, it's like being in the middle of that swarm of hornets, that are stinging you and also, stinging everybody else around you. An insightful person knows that despite the bees around it, the honey itself is pure and delicious. She devises a skillful way to separate the bees from the honey, and then enjoys the honey as she wishes. Tasting honey, like realizing the emptiness of the mind, always brings joy. Similarly, the Buddha sees the Buddha essence in each sentient being, and with skillful methods, such as the teachings of the 3 turnings of the Dharma wheel, frees it from defilements. Okay? So this is reminding us to look deep inside and really see what our potential is. To have some awareness of the natural Buddha, the natural Buddha nature and the transforming Buddha nature. Okay? That's the point of these, so make sure you come back to that. Okay, so a couple of minutes for questions or comments. Okay, then we'll dedicate.